In the words of the great Inigo Montoya,
I don't think it means what you think it means.
Barbie is a very confused movie. It is clearly man-hating and mean-spirited in conception, but in execution, the message seems to have become somewhat confused because, as it turns out, Barbie is a movie that puts motherhood as the highest pinnacle a woman can endeavour to achieve and tells us that a patriarchy is the ideal environment for both men's and women's happiness to flourish. It also tells us that women have to be brainwashed to accept feminism, because it is such a foreign concept and so unnatural that you literally have to sit a woman down and talk to her, and talk to her, and talk to her, and talk to her, until the programming finally sticks and they become self-centered activists. But before I get started, please consider subscribing, as that would really help me out, and if you like this content, give it a like. Okay, on with the vid. Barbie starts out with a bit of a homage to the opening scenes of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but in this case, it is a bunch of little girls playing mothers with baby dolls. And then all of a sudden, a giant Barbie appears, and the little girls start smashing up their dolls as they throw off the shackles of their gender roles, when they see that Barbie can be anything at all, from a doctor to a scientist to president. This is clearly a metaphor for the introduction of feminism, but instead of burning bras, they're smashing babies. So yeah, that is just a lovely bit of symbology for the pink-haired crazies. We are then introduced to Barbie Land, and what they're calling stereotypical Barbie, which means normal Barbie. Blonde hair, blue eyes, the one you think of when Barbie comes to mind. Of course, modern Barbie is about as confused and all over the place as this movie, and even includes things like Landwell Barbie, curvy Barbie, and disabled Barbie, even Chinese and mermaid Barbie. So stereotypical Barbie wakes up in her lovely Barbie dream house and wakes up looking perfect. She then waves to all the other perfect Barbies and gets on with her day of, you guessed it, being perfect. We are then introduced to the President Barbie, and we're shown an award show where the Barbies give each other Nobel Prizes for being amazing Barbies. We are then shown a Barbie court where Barbies are ruling on Barbie stuff, and Landwell lawyer Barbie, curvy Barbie, says that she has no problems holding both logic and feelings at the same time. An obvious dig at facts, don't care about your feelings. Then we see Pilot Barbie and Space Woman Barbie and drive past Mount Barbie Rushmore. And if you haven't figured it out already, Barbie Land is a fascist matriarchy state run by Barbies for the benefit of Barbies. And finally, we meet the protagonist of this story, our man, Ken. The voiceover tells us that Barbie has an amazing day every day, but Ken only has a good day if Barbie looks at him, because the Kens are second-class citizens and are being held down and held back by their Barbie overlords. The Kens are pretty much all found on the beach, where they attempt to look cool and interesting enough to get the attention of their Barbie counterparts, which is their whole purpose in life. There are multiple Kens, but our man is Blonde Beach Ken, the counterpart to stereotypical Barbie. Barbie has a big party with all the Barbies, but at the end of the night, Ken, who is Barbie's boyfriend, asks to stay over, though he isn't sure what for since they don't really understand sex, and they don't have any genitalia anyway. Barbie shoots him down and says, "It's girls' night," and then we realise that every night is girls' night, forever, and that means that there will never be a night that Ken can stay over. Plus, as she points out, it's Barbie's dream house, not Ken's, and so he doesn't belong there. Barbie leaves and goes back to her party, and Ken whispers, "I love you too." His response to what he wishes Barbie would say, because he is essentially heartbroken that she just doesn't really care that he exists. None of the Barbies care that the Kens exist. They're just part of the background to them. Back to the boring side of the story. The next morning when Barbie wakes up, something is wrong. Instead of feeling perfect and amazing, she has bedhead and has been thinking about death and even gets cellulite. Then she suddenly gets flat feet instead of standing on tiptoe. To fix this problem, she goes to visit Weird Barbie, a Barbie that in the real world has been played with in strange ways, so has ended up as a kind of outcast from Barbie society. Weird Barbie tells Barbie that her problem is that whoever is playing with her in the real world is allowing her own feelings to infect Barbie, which is bringing real-world problems into her doll existence, and she needs to go to the real world and help the girl playing with her so that everything can go back to normal. Barbie then goes to the real world with our protagonist Ken, who invited himself along since he doesn't feel like he has any worth without her. They arrive rollerblading on a beach in the real world, and Barbie finds herself being ogled by lots of men, and it makes her uncomfortable because she isn't used to being objectified. But Ken finds the attention validating, because normally no one notices that he exists. Barbie then looks to find some sort of support and sees some construction workers, who she assumes will be women, because in Barbie Land, everything is done by women. The Kens aren't allowed a place in society. But the construction workers are men, and they crack jokes about how hot she is, which makes her more uncomfortable. But Ken is clearly identifying with their masculine energy. Barbie then stops to think about how to find the girl playing with her, and Ken goes for a walk, and this is where the movie finally becomes watchable. Because up to this point it was mostly just suffering, like when you go shopping with your girlfriend, and it goes on for hours, and not good hours, like when you go to help her choose lingerie. No, it's the bad hours, when she's looking for a pair of comfortable panties and a stupidly large sweater. It is at these moments when we men congregate outside stores and give each other sad, knowing looks. So Ken goes for a walk, and a crazy thing happens. He finds that people respect him as a person, a feeling he has never had before. And men are amazing, and have an awesome masculine culture, and have done great things in the world. Not to mention, horses, for some reason. Ken loves horses. Oh, and he also discovers Sylvester Stallone rocking a fur coat. So, well, yeah, there is that. Next, Mattel discovers that 2 of their Barbies have escaped to the real world, and we meet the people in charge of Mattel, who are all men, but they're childish beta males who the movie ridicules, because they're in charge of making toys for little girls. And I'm fine with this, because I just can't stand Will Ferrell. Mattel tries to get Barbie back and put her in a box because women shouldn't go making a nuisance of themselves, or some stupid trope like that. Barbie finds the girl who played with her at school, and just as you would expect with the modern school system, the poor girl has been brainwashed into becoming a communist feminist that espouses the most ridiculous far-left nonsense, and then even calls Barbie a fascist, which amusingly is correct, but not for the reasons she mentioned. Back to our hero Ken, who has discovered patriarchy. Yes, patriarchy, that maligned worldview that feminists have obsessed over for decades, and that men have never really thought about, though if this movie is anything to go by, it is apparently time that we do. Yes, Ken finds that patriarchy really makes things better for men, and makes the world a much better place for everyone. To this end, he goes around trying to get jobs and discovers that just being a man doesn't get you anything, and that there is no patriarchy in the real world. So he heads back to Barbie Land to tell the Kens what he has discovered. Meanwhile, Barbie gets picked up by Mattel, and stuff happens, but nothing interesting, other than even the CEO in charge says that no one cares about Ken. She escapes and finally meets the person who has been messing with her life, who it turns out is the little communist girl's mother. She says that she is just a boring mum, with a boring job, and a daughter who hates her, and a husband who is essentially non-existent, which has made her feel lonely, so she played with the Barbie to cheer herself up, but it didn't work, and she transferred her worries onto Barbie. So, sad mum and communist daughter save Barbie from Mattel, and we get this little gem of wisdom from the communist daughter. Everybody hates women. Women hate women. Men hate women. It is the only thing that everyone agrees on. Which is yet more nonsense, since men love women. Men hate women being unhappy, which is what feminism has done to them. So they all head to Barbie Land, where they find that everything has changed, and finally, after the pain that is watching Barbie have her midlife crisis, we get to the part of the movie that makes sense, and has a positive message for the world. The Kens have taken over Barbie Land and instituted a patriarchy, and it is glorious. I'm sure that the writers and director of this movie meant for this to be a bad thing, but it is clearly the best thing to ever happen to Barbie Land. Finally, everyone is happy. It isn't a world geared towards the fascist Barbie state, it is a world where everyone can be happy. Kens are no longer maligned and made to feel worthless. The Barbies finally get to share their lives and dream houses with their Kens, since it turns out the Kens didn't have a home before. They must have just slept on the beach or just stood around waiting for the Barbies to return and give them relevance. Our Ken has taken over Barbie's dream house and renamed it Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa House. And in the real world, they have become a bestseller. Suddenly, both boys and girls are buying Ken products. A movie is being made, and it is already a hit. But this doesn't make the chief executive at Mattel happy because, as he says, the business is geared to making little girls happy, not making money or glorifying Ken. Only Barbie matters. Barbie gets back and finds the Barbies giving their Kens brewskis and cheerleading for them as they play volleyball on the beach, which confuses her. Then she sees what Ken has done to her dream house. Ken's Mojo Dojo Casa house. And Ken explains that while she was gone, he explained the immaculate, perfect conception that is patriarchy to everyone. And they all wanted it. They all supported it. They are all happy. The Barbies love serving the Kens and doing things that make them happy, because it makes them happy. And finally, Ken breaks down and tells Barbie how she failed him, how she never gave him any respect or acknowledged that his existence has meaning, rather than him giving her existence meaning. Then Ken tells her that in 48 hours, the Kens will head to the polls to change Barbieland's constitution to a government for the Kens, of the Kens, and by the Kens. Barbie is shocked and tells him that the Barbies worked hard and dreamed hard to make Barbieland what it is. Of course, what it is a fascist state that held Barbies above everything and kept the Kens downtrodden and powerless, left to scrabble for whatever crumbs the Barbies allowed them. And now that the shoe is on the other foot, Barbie is distraught and can't deal with having to reap what she sowed. Of course, there is a difference between the two situations, and that is that in the patriarchy, the Barbies are happy and content. The Kens are willing to share everything. They want to spend time with the Barbies. They care about the Barbies. They know that the Barbies give them a reason to be, just as they give the Barbies a reason to be. Ken then asks Barbie to leave, because in a reversal of earlier, he tells her that this is his Mojo Dojo Casa house, not Barbie's Mojo Dojo Casa house, and pointedly asks her, how does that feel? It is not fun, is it? Barbie then loses it and has her own breakdown and tells the mother and communist daughter to leave her and go back to their own messed up world, which they do, but along the way they get sidetracked, and thanks to communist girl's rousing speech about if you can't make something perfect, you can make it better, they end up at Weird Barbie's house, where with a couple of other odd Barbies, including her own Barbie, they are trying to figure out how to defeat the Kens. Barbie then admits that she's upset because she isn't pretty anymore, which Helen Mirren, in the voiceover, points out is dumb, because it's Margot Robbie. She is always pretty, and that is the trouble with being a hot girl. You are hot, even if you're wearing bin bags. Barbie is upset because she is just average Barbie. She can't do brain surgery, she isn't president, she's just normal, nothing special. Then the mother who started this whole thing makes a ridiculous contradictory speech about how impossible it is to be a woman. You can't be too thin, you can't be too fat, you can't be crass, you have to answer for men's bad behaviour, you can't be too pretty, you can't not be pretty. It is the most stupid gobbledygook nonsense I've ever heard. Yes, life has contradictions, but that goes for men and women. So the mother's speech manages to snap one of the Barbies out of her patriarchy-induced happiness. So the rest of them realise that they just need to get the mother to spout feminist, self-obsessed garbage at the Barbies to rid them of their happiness and willingness to spend time with and please their Kens. So they make a plan to kidnap the Barbies one by one and brainwash them back into being fascist, self-interested fanatics. But this time with the added spice of feminism, which, as has been shown in the real world, is cancer to women's happiness. There is also a short scene where the daughter claims that her and her mother understand what it is like to live under a patriarchy in the real world, which for a 12-year-old girl is a laughably sad sign of the liberal education system brainwashing children, since unless she grew up in an Arab country, this is clearly utterly stupid. So they enact their plan and reprogram the Barbies. Then to stop the Kens going to the polls to vote for their Ken movement, they fortify the vote by tricking the Kens into fighting each other, by lying and cheating. They do this by swapping Kens to make the other Kens jealous. It is actually an interesting thing about this movie that only the Kens really show any natural emotion. They are the sensitive ones, who know that they are being treated badly, but allow it because they want the Barbies to be happy. The Barbies, on the other hand, are just smiling fanatics who are obsessed with themselves and being perfect. So the plan works, and the Kens don't vote, which means that the Barbies regain control over Barbieland, since they hold all the important positions. They then throw the Kens a few crumbs to get them to go away, and Helen Mirren's voiceover states that one day the Kens will have as much power and influence over Barbieland as women have in the real world. Of course, this stupid statement is aimed at us in the West, but in reality, it only refers to the East, where women actually are repressed. Then Ken and Barbie talk, and Barbie tells Ken that instead of Barbie and Ken, it's Barbie and it's Ken. They are separate and shouldn't need each other, which is a terrible message for society, and again fits the theme of selfish, self-centered people thinking only of themselves, which seems to be the main theme for the Barbie storyline. Ken, though, decides that he is enough on his own, which is sad, and also a coping mechanism for the rejection he feels when Barbie tells him that she just doesn't want him. Barbie then decides that she doesn't feel like Barbie anymore, and so becomes human instead. Apparently that's an option somehow. And then the movie reaches its final conclusion, which is very much not the current thing, since it goes against everything that modern Hollywood and the far left have been espousing for years. Barbie becomes human and goes to see a gynecologist because apparently the highest calling of a Barbie is to become a mother. Yeah, this shocked me too. After all this separating of the sexes rubbish, I was not expecting the movie's final message to be that motherhood is the highest goal of women. I mean, I agree, but I wasn't expecting the pink-haired nutjobs to agree, which is why I think that this movie is not what they were trying to make, and not what the intended audience will expect, though whether they have the wherewithal to understand that message, I guess is another question. I still don't advise that anyone go and see this movie in the cinema, because Hollywood and the people involved don't deserve your support. But when it's on TV, or whatever free streaming service you use, or if you find another way of watching it, then do it. And if you do, let me know what you think in the comments. So to sum up, 1. Patriarchy makes both sexes happy and is good for everyone. 2. Women are not meant to be feminists. No one is. 3. Men, masculinity, and our bro culture is vital to men's happiness. We need women, but we also need each other, and we should nurture these important relationships. 4. We are all Ken-off. This has been Movies Suck, and the patriarchy is back, baby. Signing out. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.